strategy of delaying decisions while continuing the war. Ukraine was sidelined, used as a pretext for talks, while the real focus was US-Russia relations under the banner of pursuing peace. European observers noted relief at avoiding worse outcomes, but many warned the optics gave Putin a major diplomatic win, legitimizing him on US soil even as the war rages on. EU analyst Jacob Kierkegaard of Bruegel said the Trump-Putin summit avoided worse outcomes for Europe, noting that discussions focused on an immediate ceasefire without land swaps. Let's listen in.
I think from a European perspective, you will be quite pleased with having avoided worse outcomes. Basically, that what appears to have been discussed at the summit was an immediate ceasefire, meaning not a ceasefire following a land swap or anything like that. And that's obviously what the Europeans, the chronology that Europe wanted. So from that perspective, no outcome is a good outcome because you avoided something worse. When we consider that yesterday was a quote-unquote normal bloody day on the front line, Russia has now established the precedent that you can actually conduct negotiations, at least with the United States, while the war is going on, meaning without a ceasefire. And that certainly is, again, something that the Russian government would have liked because they want to continue the war. And of course, getting a summit with the US president is always something that Russian leaders want, especially a leader who's under a war crimes indictment and has difficulty traveling to many countries. Well, he just traveled to the United States. And was received literally with a red carpet and all of that. So even no outcome is a good outcome for Russia. They got a lot of things that they didn't have before.
Political scientist Clemens Fischer from the University of Cologne said the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska played out more as a high-stakes drama than a negotiation centered on Ukraine. He noted the following.
What we have seen on TV, because we all had only TV pictures, this was one of the best dramas we have ever seen. We do see two presidents landing in Anchorage, which is both for the Americans and for the Russians, since the Second World War, a sacred ground. In Anchorage, Russian pilots who got American planes could fly back to Russia and fight against the Nazis. And there's a cemetery with Russian soldiers there, which of course was used by Putin to lay down a wrath. How much you heard this? And then even at the press conference, which was before the meeting started, Putin was Lord of the Ring. He said there, he shaked with the journalists, he was smiling. Putin, kind of godfather, sitting there and let him do it. And it was a reverse summit, because regularly it would have been the case that you negotiate and then you make a press conference and then you make the pictures. This was a very clear thing. Both knew what they would sign at the end, even if you don't sign a document, but both agreed before the whole summit started, and therefore one should have known what the end might be. So the end is, at the end, that Ukraine was a kind of trampoline for the whole thing. They used it as a cause to meet, but Ukraine was in the center of negotiations. In the center of negotiations was a new peace deal between Russia and the US. And it was even the motto that we had seen there, pursuing peace. And for Ukraine, it was a very sad moment, because at the end of the day, Ukraine wasn't even on the table as a chance to see that they might possibly get a truce or a ceasefire. Nothing.
Political analyst Alina Frivlova that despite the summit's progress, no immediate peace deal or ceasefire is expected, with further negotiations and preparatory steps needed before any significant meetings, possibly taking weeks or even months. As the conflict intensifies, the outlook remains uncertain. Let's listen in.
What we see from little information, which was released in the morning, the situation is like that no agreement reached. There are some preliminary negotiations, probably some further meetings. And this is actually fits into the plan of Putin, which tries to postpone the time, tries to postpone the decision making, and try to utilize this time for further activities. And you saw that today already at night we had like a new shelling in Ukraine. So we'll see what will happen, but the prognosis is that we won't see any peace deal or ceasefire agreement till then.
Now we go back to our guest discussion with Professor Veselin Popovsky. He joins us live from Bulgaria. Thank you, Professor, for staying with us. Now, European observers noted relief at avoiding worst outcomes. Do you agree with them about no worst outcome?
Yes, no outcome is no outcome. I wouldn't qualify it as good or bad. In fact, it only shows the impotence of Donald Trump. A week ago, by the way, there was an ultimatum until Friday, 8th of August. And the ultimatum was about if Russia doesn't agree on a ceasefire, there will be severe consequences, sanctions, nothing of this. The ultimatum deadline expires and Donald Trump invites Vladimir Putin on the red carpet in the US territory. And after the meeting, he forgets about those ultimatums, and there were many ultimatums in the past, and they all are forgotten by Donald Trump. And he now talks about possible peace deal between Ukraine and Russia in a direct talk. And they did several rounds of direct talks in Istanbul, but those talks deliver very minimal agreement on only exchange of prisoners of war. So where we are back 6 months ago. There is absolutely no millimeter of advance and progress of all talks by Donald Trump. So it's time simply to stop talking about Donald Trump. Donald Trump should be removed from any discussions on any peace deal anywhere in the world. And let the serious players, the Europeans, NATO members, Australia, Canada, Japan, South Korea, there are many countries in the world supporting Ukraine. 55 countries in the world supply Ukraine with military equipment. And over 140 countries support Ukraine by political means in the votes of the General Assembly. This is the majority of the world in support of Ukraine. And Russia should be isolated with support only from North Korea, Iran, Belarus, and basically that's it. Well, the neutrality of India and China doesn't help much because India and China continue to buy Russian oil and gas, and that gives Putin the money to continue the war, to produce more drones and weapons, and to buy North Korean soldiers and so on. So the guilty party are definitely United States for total failure to exercise any influence on Vladimir Putin, but also on China and India, the biggest importers of Russian oil and gas. This is the only way Putin can get money out of anywhere. He could not fight this war if China and India stop buying Russian oil and gas. And that's the sad reality here. We need to name it.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you